So, after watching some of my previous comic book reviews, I've noticed that I ramble a bit much and I'm not really sure what I want to share about the story and what I don't to avoid spoilers. So, just for future reference, I've decided to follow this general rule. I will spoil a whole bunch, but only about the very beginning of a story, just to get you hooked on it and want to read the series. But I will try to spoil as least amount as possible about something that happened later on in the series. Now, I did say I didn't want to do things that are done to death, but this is just sort of a video I'm making to see if I like the format. So this one's on Invincible. Everyone and their mom has heard about it nowadays because of the Amazon Prime show, which is how I actually heard about it. And I loved the first season so much that I went out and bought all of the comic books in these big softcover editions and read all of them. And this is actually the series that got me into comic books. I was still reading manga because one of my friends recommended me JoJo. That was the first manga series that I ever read, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This was the first comic book series I ever read, and it was because of the show. And it plays out similarly to the show. So, in case you haven't seen it, there's this kid named Mark, and his dad is a superhero. And once he turns 18, he starts getting his powers, and he starts learning how to use them. And then this main superhero team called the Guardians of the Globe, all of them get murdered by his dad. That's a major twist, but it happens literally on the first episode in the show, and it happens on the very beginning of the comic book series too. And while Mark's learning to use his powers, which is the main character's name, we're constantly left wondering why his dad did that. And he's doing all this kind of shady stuff on the side, and we're not really sure of his intentions or whether or not he's a good guy. And as Mark's becoming a more and more of a superhero, tensions are slowly building, stuff like that. And Invincible is just about him and his life. It gets really high stakes later on in the series, and they later find out what his dad did, and crazy stuff happens. This, I would definitely recommend to a first reader. I was a new reader when I read this, and this is what got me into comic books. So, obviously, I would recommend this to someone new to comic books. This would be a fantastic first read. If I were to recommend anyone to a first read, it would be Invincible. I would give this a 9 out of 10, purely because there's one annoying thing that I didn't like that the artist did. And that would be, if someone said something that made someone react with a facial expression, they would just kind of, let's say someone said something stupid and someone reacted with a facial expression they would just show 3 panels of the same drawing of the person going to show the lingering emotion. I think that's kind of lazy. People's facial expressions don't just stay the same whenever they're reacting to something. Think it should have gone and then or something like that. Just show the evolution of the person's emotion throughout the series, throughout the scene, through their facial expressions. I know that it's cheaper to just do that, and they did end up stopping that later on in the series, but that is just something for me personally that took my enjoyment of it down just the tiniest bit, and that's why it's a 9 out of 10. That's the only gripe I have with the series. Other than that, it's perfect. And I have it in these big softcover compendium editions. They're coming out with hardcover compendium editions. They're $30 more expensive. I would just suggest you get the softcover. The hardcovers also take up more space on a shelf, and if you're like me and you're building a massive collection, then you're going to want to conserve as much shelf space as possible. Sorry for stuttering so much. I have a whole shelf for big softcover compendium editions like this, and I can fit a lot more on them than I can on my hardcover shelf because they take up less space. But yeah, that's Invincible. And I recommend it to new readers. That's it. See ya.